It's actually really confusing for many people to explain how the president of the United States is picked. So let's try to dig into it just a little bit here. First of all, remember the requirements for being a president. So I'm going to give you this sway. I'd like you to take a look at these 5 people and think about which ones could actually serve to be the president. Remember, you've got to be 35, you have to be born in the United States, and you have to have lived here for at least the past 14 years. So you could be born somewhere else. Born in the United States, move somewhere else as long as you come back and you've lived here for 14. So who picks the president? You'd think it would be everybody over 18 in our country that gets to vote, but it's not. They do go to the polls and they do, choose who they want for president, but they're really not picking the president. They're picking someone known as an elector. Okay, now the electors together all form the Electoral College, and they're the ones that pick the president. So each state gets a certain number of electors. You see here, it's basically the number of representatives you have in Congress plus the number of senators you have in Congress. Each state gets 2 senators, and you get representatives based on how many people you have. So the smallest states have 3. The bigger states, New York is one of the top 4 biggest, have many more because of their population. And this shows you the number across the country. California has the most, Texas, and then Florida and New York next after that. Okay, so voters get to choose electors, and then electors go and choose the president. Don't American voters just kind of basically choose the president? Yes and no. It's not exactly that. Usually you're right, but not always. There's been 5 times in American history when that didn't happen. Okay, so if you look at this chart, you will see, expand that for a moment, these are the 5 elections where these are the votes the loser got, these are the votes the winner got. Okay, all the way from 38,000 different, or in 2000 it was about 500,000. 2016 it was almost 3 million votes different. So more Americans chose the losing candidate here than the winning candidate. So the question of how that happens. Okay, when states get to, it's kind of a winner-take-all system, where if a candidate wins New York State by even 1 vote, the Electoral College gives all their 29 votes to that one candidate. But in another state, the other candidate might have won, it might have been a very close election. But if they win it, they still get all the votes. But even if it was a blowout, they get all the votes. So they might have gotten many, many more votes in one state, and other states might have been very close. That's getting complex, and I'm not doing a great job explaining it. We're going to do some math with it later so that we can kind of sort it out together. Here's some arguments about the Electoral College. Many Americans argue, hey, this doesn't work because candidates end up only going to these swing states, they call them, to focus on those. That's where there's a very even number of Democrats and Republicans, and presidential candidates think that those states can be swayed. Those are like the battlegrounds where they have to win those states, and they're very close. They don't spend a lot of time in the states like New York or Texas or California, where they might have a lot of electoral votes, but we kind of already know who they're going to vote for because there's so many more Democrats or Republicans in those states. So these states here can go either way. Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Michigan's in this category now, Wisconsin, Georgia. There's some other states that are in those swing state categories. Okay. Of course, the smaller states argue that if you get rid of the Electoral College, presidential candidates are only going to go to the huge states with all the votes. So if you look here, here's some cartoons. This one shows you where candidates would probably only focus if there was no Electoral College. They'd only focus on the big states like ours. Whereas if you had with the Electoral College, they only focus on these swing states like you see here. There's Ohio, Florida, okay, Iowa, Pennsylvania. These are the states they only focus on, not the other ones. So, of course, when you have the Electoral College, presidents only end up basically advertising in these big states, these swing states, not the rest of the country. So the votes of many people in the country don't end up counting that much because it's already a foregone conclusion who's going to win their state.